Today we're going to talk about communicative language teaching theory. And first of all, I would like to share with you what is communicative. As you know, to communicate, in order to communicate, we have to receive feedback and those kind of things. We also have to be in contact with authentic context, because also maybe as you have seen in TV or in radio, maybe you have listened, the way the teachers used to teach their students, it was a very traditional way to teach them. They used to be the authority only in the classroom. They only used have to talk. They only have the reason. Students only were receiving. They were receptive and receiving only what the teacher used to tell them, but they weren't able to talk or to express to question. Nowadays, with this theory, it's focused on students' behavior, the students' interaction between context and authentic things. Because it has been investigated or it has been researched through educators that sometimes students can learn grammar and those kind of things. They can structure, they can make sentences in the correct way. But when they go out and they want to communicate with a native person or with another person, they're not able to communicate. So this approach, this theory is focused on that, how to make students to interact and how they can develop themselves, how they can interact with a native person. Or, for example, if they travel someday to another place, I don't know, to a place where the language is spoken. But also we're going to discuss many things about the traditional and classic and the current way they used to speak, the tasks, and also the role of teachers and also the role of students.
So now I'm going to talk about the goal of CLT. The main goal of CLT is to make students to communicate in the language by realistic situations. They have to know the meaning and functions. It means that they have to be able to communicate in their environment with other people, to each other, with the professor, and all the people who is around them. The role of the teacher. The role of the teacher is the teacher has to be a monitor, a facilitator. He has to be a guy with the students. He has to communicate with them and make them to talk with each other. He has to provide problems and situations likely to promote the communication. The role of students. The students now are responsible of their own knowledge. They have to communicate to each other. They have to look for feedback, for interchange of meaning, and now they have to be able to communicate and not just know the grammatic aspect.
Yeah. Well, the main goal of communicative language teaching is to develop communicative competence. As my partner said, CLT is not focused on grammatical rules and grammatical structures, but grammar is also important. According to Jake C. Richards, communicative competence is the ability not only to apply grammatical rules to form grammatical correct sentences, but also it implies know those sentences and how to use them, where, when, and to whom. But at the same time, communicative competence involves other competences, such as grammar competence. It means it's that knowledge about syntax, grammar, and grammatical rules of a language. We have the sociolinguistic competence. It's that understanding and where the conversation takes place and how to use an accurate vocabulary and accurate language in those certain contexts. We have the discourse competence, and is the ability to understand the elements of a message. And finally, we have the strategic competence, and it refers to those strategies that communicators apply to initiate, maintain, and sometimes repair breakdowns of communication. But how can we develop that communicative competence on learners? Well, we have certain principles that we can follow in certain activities, and both principles and activities are related, so close. For example, in the communicative principle, we have to make real conversation on the classroom. It means you have to assign certain activities such as role play, and in which the students could interact with to each other and make students to speak. We have the text principle, and it refers to those activities in which the language is used. For example, we can't imagine a different situation. For example, in a restaurant, it requires certain kind of vocabulary and certain kind of structures. And if you are talking about your plans in the future, you're talking about other kind of structure, other kind of vocabulary. And finally, we have the meaningfulness principle. And a language that is meaningful to the learners, it means that that knowledge supports the process learning. So you have to add a value to that knowledge that you, as teacher, you are teaching them.
Excellent. And for example, then we can also recognize with our partner Rafa how the classical, the traditional, and the current way to teach was.
Well, the traditional way to learn, to teach something, was like just repetition or just based in one skill. Could be listening or could be just writing skills or speaking or listening, as I said.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was only repetition, you know. You have to write one word a lot of times, yes, and that's how the traditional
Memorizing also.
memorizing, just repetition and just focus on one skill. And then we have another that is the classical way. That way as my partner said, it has a context. It means if you are in a restaurant, there are a special way to ask for something for pay. When you are with your friends, with your friends, you have to develop a structure in a different way than when you are in a formal and you're in the school, you know, something like that. And also, they are not just focused on one skill. They have to develop listening, writing, reading, and speaking. All those kind of skills have been developed just practicing, and it says something or it tries to explain something about the ability. You have to really do it every day. You must try to speak, or don't use your mother tongue. You have to use the foreign language or the language you want to learn or something. Even you practice more, practice, you more be
practice.
Yes, you get success on it. Okay, in the last nowadays we are just trying to make much more kind of skills with exercises, applying not just it is more like in a free decision, because now you can just improve. What do I mean? And sometimes in the another ways they just try to be like mechanicals. And now what we want to make the student is just more free, not just certain kind of words or some expressions. And what? Wait. Hold on a second. I just try to explain that people just have to develop more and more, even more. Not just like in a one way or stuck in just one situation.
Yeah, and the most important in an authentic context, I think. I only can add, for example, in the classical way the teachers used to teach in the past, they used to give a little bit attention, or they used to pay attention a little bit to the grammar. grammar was paying attention, but not it wasn't the most important or the main objective. Rather, the most important objective was to communicate and interact between students. Grammar, we can say in this approach or in this theory, is important, but it's not the main purpose. It's not the main objective. I mean, teachers can teach students how to structure and to form sentences, but it's not the most important. You know, they have to teach them how to go out, how to go outside, how to go outdoors, and how to communicate. Something else I can add, for example, it's the main activities or the activities that are supposed to be right. For example, is the gap, the feedback, and the choice. In the feedback, it means that we have to have interaction between two persons. We have to receive a response from the other person, from the speaker. In the case that the listener is in the case of, well, has to be a speaker and a listener, so has to be feedback between themselves. And also the choices, as my partner Danny said before, how to, yeah, it's according to the task. How we're going to say it, what we're going to say, and to whom we're going to say it. As she said, we're not going to communicate the same way with our friends and with our boss, for example, or in a